Welcome to the Sunday night intention call with Self Care by Aisha. Actually, let me spotlight myself. All right. So I just want to welcome you all here. What we do every week is we have a topic that is related to self care, and then we do some round robins. If you're on Facebook, we don't do the round robins there to give people a more comfortable environment, but you do get the message. So you should know, but my name is Aisha Moore, and I help professional women who are overwhelmed get serious about self care so that they can outsmart overwhelm, boost their careers, and revive relationships. So that is what we're here to do. And this is the third part of a series on how to plan better so that you don't become overwhelmed. So the first one we covered the thought processes around that. The second one we covered the systems, and today we're going to talk about the habits. So let me tell you what the definition of a habit is, because it'll help set up our conversation. So it's a settled practice or regular tendency. I'm sorry. It's a settled or regular tendency or practice that is hard to give up. So some key things in there: it's settled, it's regular, and it's hard to give up. Now, then there's a second one that I also thought was good, which is an acquired mode of behavior that has become nearly involuntary, nearly completely involuntary. And so that one really struck me because people want to know, so what are my habits around planning? And I was like, I know I've had like 4 weeks of the think and write about this, but I'm having a hard time. And I realize it's because they have become like completely involuntary for me. So it's hard for me to like identify the habits, because we think of, sometimes we think people think they don't have habits. So I used to think I didn't have habits because my life was a mess. So that meant I didn't have habits. But I realized that I did have some things that were completely involuntary for me. It was waking up late, not knowing where my keys are, being late. All of that were habits. So sometimes we think habits always are like on the good side, right? But they're definitely, it's like good or bad. But sometimes people think they don't have habits. Well, we definitely have habits. Like I have the habit of scrolling Instagram before I go to bed. So that's why I have the alarm that says stop scrolling Instagram and read a book, because that is my habit. And I think what I think people are really talking about is the intentional habits that they set versus the ones that are sort of more completely involuntary. We just do them on a regular basis, but we haven't thought about choosing them. So let's talk about the habits that I use when it comes to planning in the way that would be so you'd be less overwhelmed. And again, I struggle with the difference between like my thought processes and my habits. So these might not all fit the true definition of a habit. So just take it as a tip, right? So it might not fall in the habit bucket, but take it as a tip. So my first habit is when I'm planning, self-care goes on my calendar first, because then that lets me know how much time I have for everything else. Whereas before it wasn't even on the calendar, but the thought of it was I'll get it in when I get done everything else, and that just did not work for me. It led to burnout. It led to short-term disability. It led to diagnosed generalized anxiety. It led to almost an ulcer, right? So that was not working for me. So I have now said, okay, so where does the self-care need to be first? And then I plan everything else around that. The second thing I do is always make sure I leave something in the tank, meaning that I don't like go let myself get to the wall. I also like I don't max myself out, right? Because a lot of times people will ask you to do something like I'm maxed out, that's why I can't do it. If I tell somebody I'm maxed out, I'm probably lying, because I just don't max myself out anymore. But it's my max, right? It's not the typical max where people are like always running. Not that typical max, right? So I make sure I leave something in the tank. The next thing I do is I turn my to-do list into appointments on my calendar. So that way I can take them from like this idea that I'm going to do that, and to make sure that I put it on there like when I'm going to do that, because it needs to transfer to like I have to do that to when I'm going to do that. And I mentioned this before, but if you're a Gmail user, there is in one of the menus, it shows you, it says create an event. So sometimes I'll get an email from someone and then I'll be like, okay, create an event And so I'm going to schedule that for the next day or, later in the week. And so therefore, not only is it on my calendar to do that thing, whatever the request was in the calendar, like the body of the calendar email, it's in your Gmail. So definitely have that option in Gmail. I'm not sure if you have that option in other programs. The number 4 habit is to have work hours. So again, I don't know if it's like a thought process, a system, or a habit, but my habit is, but I guess it leans into a habit is because my habit is I only work these certain hours, right? That's the habit. Like, okay, I know Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're shutting it down at 5:30, right? Tuesday, Thursday, I work a little longer. So that is the habit. So I no longer have the habit of just working all the time. The habit is I have work hours. And then the weekends are just not on the table, like automatically. Like I've decided that I'm going to do 2 weekends per month because there's always a grant or something I need to do, but that's it. So that is the habit. The habit is I only work on these designated times that I have set for myself. So some people have jobs where like when you're not at work, you just can't do your work, right? Like that's what it is, right? But for me, it can be done anytime. And they always like workplace flexibility, all of that. So to me, flexibility, workplace flexibility for where I work was the flexibility to work all the time, work in the middle of the night. That's what it was flexible. Like, yes, you could take your child to the doctor in the middle of the day. It's flexible, but that didn't mean that you didn't need to make up that time later. So I call that faux flexibility. And so that's one of my habits is to manage my work time and not let that be something that just spills over. And then number 5 is to go to bed on time because then I wake up on time and I have a time for myself. And then it doesn't lead to like I was planning something at like 8 or 9 o'clock and that ends up getting done at 10 because I woke up late or I was just like too groggy. So going to bed on time. And then when it comes to my bullet journal, how I plan, this thing sits open on my desk all the time. Like it's right next to me. And that I have that habit because when I was using electronic systems, it was just like going, like my to-do list was going in there, but it was like in the background. I don't know how many tabs you have open on your computer, but it was one of the 30 tabs. So it would get completely lost. But here, this is right in front of me. I can jot down a little note. And also because that's the other habit. I rarely use these to write notes on. Rarely, because then it just becomes it's an organized mess for me. And so if I do happen to write on a Post-it note, the habit is to at least put the Post-it note in the bullet journal so it's still in there if I happen to scribble on one. But that's definitely a habit that my habit is to not write on Post-it notes anymore. It just does not work for me. It's not, I can't organize them the way that I would like to. So I don't do that. So the bullet journals open, Post-it notes. I don't even know why those are there. How did you guys get here? Oh, I know. Whenever someone signs up for one of my programs, I write your name on the wall, on a Post-it note and put on the wall. And I affirm things for you guys. So if you tell me like you have a goal or something, like it's there and I'll walk by and I'll be like, oh, let me like send a good shout out, some good love to whoever's in my program. So that's why. So this was just to write people's name on the wall, but normally those are not here. So the bullet journal open because it remains an active process for me that I'm always looking at it like, okay, what do I need to do? Or I'm always writing in it like, okay, somebody said I need to do something, let me put that here. Or I had a thought, put it here. So it always remains open and active. And so this one is, I don't know, like, I think it's like 5x7. I don't know if anybody listens to the Side Hustle Pro podcast, but that's where this is from. And so it's like not that big, but it's not like tiny. So it's a good size, but it's not like an 8x10 or something huge. So I like to have it in that size. So just to recap, what my planning habits are is that self-care goes on my calendar first. I leave something in the tank. I do not max myself out. I turn things on my list into appointments, especially things that come via email. I turn those into appointments. So I remember because I don't want to remember. That is one of my thought processes is not to remember. I have work hours that are the base of how I work. And then I I go to bed on time, and then the bullet journal is an active process. Give me 1 second. So for those of you who came on late, my groceries are getting delivered in a second. Yeah, he's about to pull up to the house. So I want to give some announcements, and then Ann Jeanette has graciously this accepted my invitation to run the round robin. So quick announcements. I want to tell you first how you can get a free ticket to planting the seeds of self-care. How you can get a free ticket to that is one of the bonuses for From Overwhelm to Overflow, my signature group program. So if you are interested in really digging in over 6 weeks to get some of these results that I've been talking about, to get serious about self-care, to outsmart that overwhelm, to revive your relationship, set boundaries, all of that, send me a private message and I will talk to you and see if you're right for the program. And then on January 23rd, we have Planting the Seeds of Self-Care happening again. This time is the mind body edition, because I know so many of us have exercise and healthy eating goals, right? And that's all about the habits that we have. And so we're going to have an amazing doctor come to talk to us, not about how to eat right, how the fact that she wasn't eating right, she was so stressed out that it was affecting her health and how she overcame that. I'm going to talk about like where I am in the middle of this and the new habits that I'm developing and how you can develop habits that stick. And then lastly, we're going to do some restorative yoga because Ann Jeanette and Cheryl was like, we don't want a boot camp. So you tell me what you want and I'll make it happen. So we're going to do restorative yoga because I think we hold so much stress in the body. So learning how to reduce that is just something that we all need to do, because we need to release that stress every day. Because remember, if stress happens every day, self-care happens every day, and restorative yoga is a good tool for that. So I'm going to say goodbye to my folks on Facebook. We'll see you all next week, and please leave some comments in the Facebook group.